How about you guys? Am I back? Hopefully I'm back. Ah. There we go. Yep, I am back. Yay, being back. Now we can just do a little bit on the side here. I am going to do a little bit of highlight on the side here just because reflected light and because I don't want to leave everything all in the dark. Just a little bit to pick out a tiny bit. And not at full strength, but just to bring out a little bit of these little ties. And then back here, we do have light falling on the back of the leg. So we want to bring out the highlight around this knot. And on the back of the leg. And this is super quick. Like, you should not spend a ton of time on this. Other than that, it is practicing your fine detail work. None of these details are terrifically important, so we just want to move on with them. And this one's going to have a little light here. Anything on this side of the model? It's a never-ending journey, Silver Tongue. I'm still learning stuff, and I'm like decades in. Decades plural. So here, if I want to, I can bring out the suggestion of texture a little bit more. These look a little ragged, and some of them look almost like they are little rope strands. They've got little details that have kind of gotten lost in the casting process. But yeah, it's a never-ending journey. The great part is that, like, with each new stage, you get to feel proud of yourself, like more and more accomplished. As you understand more and more things, it gives you ability to execute on all those cool ideas that you've always had. And with each attempt at executing, you get better and better. You learn more. You try different stuff. When you master one thing, you get the excitement of trying a new thing. All right, ropes on here. We need to get the ropes a little bit more on this barrel. Thanks, Kaz. I had a good vacation with my folks. I'm far away from my family. My brother lives close to them, and so one of my resolutions when I got divorced was that I was going to see my family more, because I didn't a lot when I was married. So I am, this is part of that. That, and I missed my mom. We went to Mexico. Was cool, but she didn't make it because she was feeling ill. They did figure out what was wrong with her, though. So that's great, and she feels better. It makes me happy. Because she's turning 75 this year, so both my parents are actually in really good health in general, so I'm blessed for that. They both take pains to keep active, which is great. All right, just a little bit of suggestion. Even when the rope is like squashed and the casting has been lost, if you do like little dabs with your brush, you can suggest rope texture. It's really all you need. Yeah, a lot of people got in during the pandemic because you had time, right? So finally explore like new hobbies and spend time on learning new things. What's the good thing about the pandemic? Like, there was plenty of bad things, but some good came out of it. All right, there we go. I think that's pretty good. I got a little rope on this little skull here, which technically wouldn't get a lot of light, but I'm gonna use, and you can take this, you know, you can take stylistic liberties. If I want to bring out this rope just a little bit more, I can, even though it's in shadow. Just be careful, because if you're going for a very dramatic light and shadow, taking an artistic liberty like that to highlight that rope, even though it is in shadow, will make your light sourcing look weird. So here I'm going to get away with it because this is kind of the more neutral area on the back. I've got a hair in here I'm trying to get off. There we go. Even with no dog, I still get the little hairs on my minis. All right. I think that's all of our ropes. And so now I do want to get this this leather, the lower band on this leather thing. This is about the same color as I used on it too. So I'm going to get that kind of stippling stroke along the top to suggest that it's ragged. That'll be good. And that's how little you need for texture sometimes, is to just like kind of make a stipple on the top of a strand of leather, and it'll make it look like it's cracking. Yeah, you're a rarity then, Crows, if you didn't have time off during the pandemic. I guess I didn't either, because I was doing this, because I had already scaled back and moved. So my new job was entirely, I didn't have to go out to work. All right, good. I think I'm feeling pretty good about this. So now just a little bit of highlight on these rocks. And I've decided to keep them just like black stones. So I'm going to use a blue-black highlight on them. So I'm going to grab Ashen Blue and Blue Liner. I'm going to mix those. Yeah. Your cat decided that he needed to directly mark that mini as his. Silly cats. They're just jealous because you spend time on your minis and they want you to spend more time on them, because cats. They're like, you do not need to spend any time on anybody but me and my pettins. It's true. I think it was part of Bones 3 or Bones 4. Bones 4 maybe. Because we're on 5, right? I always forget what we're on. Oh, speaking of Kickstarters, did you guys see the big Brandon Sanderson thing he launched yesterday? Those who are fans of him as an author? Yeah, pretty much cursed. You're right on that with cats. Yeah, there are worse things you could do with your time, Agent Marvel. When I got unemployed back in the day, that's when I learned HTML and how to do websites. And I still use that knowledge today when I'm working on my current websites. So I hated being unemployed. It was really depressing. It was hard on me psychologically, but I did do something useful with the time. Oh, you saw it, Crows? Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to go for it, but I'm actually really as an author, as somebody who writes, I'm very intrigued by this, because he's for those who didn't get it, you should go watch his video on it, because it's a surprise video and I'm not going to spoiler it for you because he asked not to. Yeah, exactly, Thormel. That's why I'm excited, because I'm probably going indie at this point, so it's New York needs to watch out now. They're gonna have it's the Kingmaker thing, where an author signs a traditional contract but then goes and self-publishes something else, and that Kickstarter is what is it at 15 million? It's got to be past 15 million now, isn't it? It's insane. Hi, Mike and Robin. Yeah, I just don't want to take a chance on a book I don't know about. So with Brandon, I like a lot of his work, but some of his work I'm met on. So I'm not one of those people who would take a chance on that Kickstarter. But I do think it's exciting because of the way it's rewriting the rules. Because he's probably the author that should have maybe gone this route before, because he's so prolific. He writes constantly. He churns out books like crazy. Past 15 mil. What's it at, Crows? It's definitely, it's the highest. He had the highest scoring book Kickstarter ever with the Way of Kings hardcover, and now he's more than doubled it. All right, let's get some of this blue. So that's the color I made. This is Storm Chaser Blue just because I had it on my tabletop Blue Liner, never mind. Blue Liner and Ashen Blue. And Ashen Blue because I used a little bit of it in the fur, remember? So I'm going to keep with that color then, at least have a color in common with the highlights on my black stone here and the fur color. 15.9. Yeah, I thought, yeah, he's gonna, and it's, guys, it's not even 24 hours yet. It's not even 24 hours since he launched it. And he's already at almost $16 million for this Kickstarter. This is going to be exciting to see. No, he didn't leave his traditional publishing contracts, Butts. You should go watch his video because it's kind of a surprise video and it's funny. It's actually really amusing. So I'm not going to spoiler it for you because he asked not to. But you should go watch his video about it, his serious announcement video on YouTube. And then you'll know what's going on. Reaper brush. Probably, Mike. If it was Reaper, then yeah. We have two different brush series. We have the black-handled and the red-handled ones. And they're very different. So our red-handled ones with the yellow bristles are Teclon, which means it's synthetic. And there is a Reaper propane. It's just rubbed off. This is a big old flat I use for basing stuff. But then we have the black-handled, and these are Kolinsky sables, and these are the high-end brushes. So we do a fairly decent Teclon, but it is a Teclon, so it is, you know, you pay $5 or $6 for a brush, you're gonna get a $5 or $6 brush. The Kolinskys are actually very reasonably priced, and it's hard to keep them in stock. But they're both decent brushes for what they are. Yeah, go take a look later, Beth. It's funny. Yeah, Kerniko. We're talking about Brandon Sanderson and his big Kickstarter thing yesterday in Ara, which is already almost up to $16 million, which is exciting. I just love watching these big Kickstarters, and I especially love being a writer and being a writer of fantasy, which Brandon is. I like to see when you've got an established fan base like he does. He's probably, at this point, he's almost a household name. If you read fantasy, you know who Brandon Sanderson usually you know who Brandon is. But yeah, it's just exciting to see it. Like, to see how much support an established author can get. Even for those of us like me, I'm probably going to have to self-publish my first books, but still, it's pretty cool. I just like to root for these people. I like to see it happen. I like to see somebody other than like blockchain companies getting good money on Kickstarter. How about that? Yeah, not a fantasy reader. Yeah, so you wouldn't know about him. He's one of the big name fantasy authors in Ara. He writes epic fantasy and some other stuff. He's written superhero fiction and young adult and all sorts of stuff. His superpower as a writer is to construct believable magic systems that are really unique. Oh yeah, Reaper. Reaper started it. I'm just a sideline, Mike. Reaper's main business has always been making miniatures. And so it's funny that you stumbled across our YouTube before you realized we were actually a company. So if you go to, is it reapermini.com still? Or is it reaperminiatures.com? I never remember. Because it's been a while. But yeah, so there we go, reapermini.com. Quindy just did the link there in the chat, Mike. So if you go over there, you'll see all of the stuff we do, which is a lot of stuff. Brushes, and I made the paint line, like the MSP line. I created it. And we have over 500 colors. So, yes. Probably his most famous stuff is Way of Kings, Mistborn, as far as for books, but I didn't like Mistborn very much, but I did really enjoy Way of Kings. So I've got the second book. I haven't started it yet. I told myself I have to finish editing. I have to finish my developmental edits on my first novel before I can start his book, because they're hugely long. All right, so now let's build a highlight for this. I've got some nice, you see those blue edge highlights on the stone? Keeping it to edge highlights will make it seem like it's maybe shiny and sharp, and that's kind of what I want. Yeah. Yeah, he's cool, Chibi. I'm very excited about his Kickstarter that he launched yesterday, because it really rewrites the rules for authors. I kind of wonder how this is going to affect New York. Like, I kind of wonder what New York is saying at this time. I kind of wonder if he ever, like, you know, even told his publisher that he had these. I kind of wonder if he even told his agent that he had these. I mean, as a writer, you don't have to, if you write a new book, you don't have to offer it to your agent. You don't have to offer it to New York. You can do it yourself. It's yours. You're the IP producer. I think a lot of writers forget that, you know, especially when we go looking for an agent at a publishing house. It's like, oh, well, you should be grateful to be picked up by an agent or a publishing house. But in reality, we are the people who are writing the magic. So it's cool. Yeah, cool, Mike. Yeah. For sure. Yeah, and if you, like I said, if you're into fantasy miniatures and you want paint and stuff, like, we have it on our website. And most local game stores will carry at least a little bit of Reaper. So I'm going to go and I'm going to hit a little bit of the edges that are up top here. I'm not going to make an edge light around the entire thing. I'm going to more concentrate on, like, the points and highlighting those up, which is going to make it feel a little bit sharper. Yeah, he also, thank you, Butts. He completed the Wheel of Time series after Jordan passed away. They were friends, and Jordan's wife asked Brandon if he would finish it. I think I read that. I'm gonna hit this. There we go. So just the little edges here, mostly toward the direction of the light. And I'm going to bring them up to near white. And what that's going to give us is that kind of shiny, reflective, because I want these to feel sharp, and I don't want them to feel dull and just sharp around the edges. I want this to be more like he's used like a black flint or even an obsidian, although I'm not using the right colors to convey obsidian, really. I want these to look sharp and look deadly. Yeah, I went up to book 8 because I had a friend at my game store where I was working at the time, just newly post-college, I think, and I just wanted, it was the only thing we had to talk about, so I read the books just to read the books, and because I still, even at that time, I wanted to be a writer, so I was curious about what people liked about them. Even with a book you don't like, there's always something that attracts people to it, and that's the interesting part for me of being a writer, is just seeing what really attracts people to stories. There we go. So just bringing up some of these really sharp highlights on these stones. Yeah, that might have made a difference. I guess age might make a difference, for sure. Like and it goes the other way too, right? That's it. It's like books that I tried to read when I was younger and just couldn't even, I go back to as an adult and I'm like, oh my God, this is brilliant. How could I not read this? So it works both ways with reading. Which is cool, because then you get to rediscover stuff. And sometimes I'll go back and reread a book that I loved earlier in life and just get something completely different out of it the second time around. So I did get finally rejected by my agent that I was submitting to, who actually had my sample. I had asked for my first 100 pages. He wrote me a really nice rejection letter. And he's actually moving out of representing fiction, but he wrote me a really nice rejection letter. Like, he actually he had my materials and he read them once, and he actually stopped and reread them again before he rejected them, and he told me so. And this was one of the big houses, so I'm very very pleased. It's funny because when you get to like to the point where you've written a book and you're submitting it to agents, you get to really appreciate nice rejection letters. Ones where they actually talk to you instead of sending you a form. But what this does is it officially frees me up to self-publish. So now that is the new goal, and we'll be full steam ahead on that. So there's my little book update for my own little book update. All right, so again, edge only for here. We're not going to worry about flat sides. We're not going to worry about that sort of light. I just want to really bring out, and this is not necessarily realism. This is more an artistic decision, because if I'm concentrating on the edges and I'm just bringing them up, I'm trying to draw attention to them, right? And that's what I should be, because I want the jaggedness of them to stand out. Oh yeah, it was a good rejection, Twisted Oma. Yep. And you know what? I got the same, for the most part, every personalized rejection I've gotten actually offered pretty much the same feedback. And the fun and really cool thing is it's the same feedback I got from my developmental editor that I am now fixing. So I can definitely see how my writing has improved. Unfortunately, I submitted to all these people before I got those edits back. But you know what? That's a learning thing too, right? I should have gone to the developmental editor before submitting to agents if I really wanted to make my book better. But that's not something that's like commonly told writers, right? They just say, make the book the best you can be. They don't say, hey, go and spend money to hire an actual editor to go over your work and then submit to agents. It's kind of like brought up as an option, but it's not like... But that's fine. I'm actually happy with how things have worked out. I can always write another series and try to get it traditionally published. But this first series will be mine, and we will just put it out. But yeah, I mean, I've gotten consistently the same, as far as what the only problem with the manuscript is. I've got the consistent same feedback. So, and I'm fixing that now. So I feel pretty good, because if that's all that they could say about it, and I'm fixing those problems, it's going to be really good when it gets out. I already see that it's, I'm very happy with it. Actually, doing these edits has made me fall in love with my story again, which is really cool. Because, you know, after you've revised it and rewritten it 25 times, you kind of are like, oh, this again. It's like when you're working on a mini and you just keep trying to fix something and fix something and fix something. And usually with a mini, I tell you to move on. And sometimes people will tell writers that too. They'll say, you know what, your first book is never going to be great, and you're just going to just finish it and move on, right? But I've found that what I run into with models is just there's only so much that a given model can teach you. And I still hold by that. I do think that if you go back to a model after a significant amount of time has passed, like you've been working on your painting and it's the next year, and you go back to your model after a year and maybe you paint a new version of it, that's valuable because you've got some perspective and you've learned some stuff, right? Yeah, exactly, Shadow Raven. I'm with you there. But yeah, so I'm pretty happy. I'm actually fairly confident at this point that if I went out and I wrote a new series, I think I could get an agent. Like, there have been enough giving me personalized feedback with only that one weakness, really. And so if I can address that weakness, I think I'm good. But I don't mind putting these first books. These were labors of my heart, so we'll put them out there and see how they do. It's the adventure. It's like putting your Patreon out there. It's exactly the same thing. You're putting out something that you've created that you feel might be of value to others. And then you just have to see if other people agree. But even if they don't agree, you still put it out there. You still, like, you know, put your work out there. And I think that's important. There. So see the edges. So one thing we could do with these big flat ones is you can just bring in a little extra texture, like little slanty lines, like as if there's kind of texture and fissures on the surface here. So I'll start with the kind of the dark blue. You can see what I did there. I'm going to grab my light blue and go over those a little bit thinner and sharper and more toward the edge. So that gives you more of a crystalline look when you do it that way. Yeah, I feel you on the power nap. I love my power naps. But yeah, I still have proposals out to agents, but they're all queries and I haven't heard back. So given the amount of time that's passed, I doubt I'm going to get a request. I have learned that if your work is going to light up somebody as far as an agent, it's going to light them up right away and they're going to get back to you, unless they're just so far behind on slugging through their materials, which is rarer. But their materials requests that I've got have all been within the first 2 weeks of submission. So, all right. So all these big flat square ones, I'm just putting a little bit more detail on just because they're a bit boring. I'm going to go and do it on this one as well. But yeah, it's all a journey. It's all an adventure. Just like painting. It really is just another facet of creativity. Now on this one, I can go, this big long one, I could go the opposite. I could do a strike across it like this to try to introduce a couple of facets like that. And I'm actually going to bring in almost a pure white also on these. I'm just kind of working around and making sure that I'm hitting all the ones I want. I think I've got it. I don't really need to hit this one on the underside, but I want to just put a little bit of blue color on it. And there's another pokey long one here, so I'm going to put another stripe across it. Yeah, a lot of guys I knew at Games Workshop were like that, Cursed. They loved building the models. That was their joy. And then when it came to painting them, they're like, spray. Or dip. Most of them just did not get into the painting part. There, so I put a little bit of a nick there too. So now that we've taken these bigger areas and we've broken them up, now we've given these stones a bit more character. So now I'm going to build a brighter highlight. So previously we were using something that was very close to ashen blue. And I'm going to take some of that into a new puddle and put another drop of pure white in it. You know what my dream is, guys? I'm going to share my dream with you today. I have a new dream. I believe in chasing those, so, you know. But if I ever get to be a successful author, what I would most like to do is, like, either through my Patreon or some other venue, I would like to establish a workshop, a writing workshop, but for people who don't have the money to attend writing workshops. Like, something you could apply to and send in a sample to and get accepted, but you would get your whole way paid. Because I just remember, like, when I got to go to a professional workshop, but I was very lucky. And my then husband at the time helped pay for it. But there are so many people who are, like, could be really good writers out there who don't have the cash to, because these things are not cheap. Most of the time because they're paying the instructors, right, to actually come and instruct. But I just wish there was more. It's you, Shadow Raven. Ah, you told your hubby he has no excuse not painting? Yeah. Yep, no excuses, but in chair. That's right, Twisted Oma. Don't let him off. Oh, uh-oh. Interesting. Well, hold on. Let me, Yeah, it's reboot, guys, because it appears to be Twitch. Yeah, exactly, Inara. Just something to give that opportunity, because, you know, I just don't like it. I don't like it when it's pay to win. I really don't. I don't like when life is pay to win, and sometimes I feel like life gets really pay to win. So, that's what my dream would be. That's what I would most love to do. If I if I got to be a fairly successful author. There we go. So just little tiny pinpoints now on the sharpest bits to bring out the shiny sharpness of them. And this still isn't near to white. It's just, it's more like Moonstone Blue. But it's enough. I don't necessarily need it to get all the way to pure white. I just want it to be reflective enough to suggest that sharpness. Oh, I'm not doing anything like totally like too intensive right now, so you're good. Just finishing our little tiny sharp highlights. Now back here we get to have fun because we did all these little chips and stuff on the bigger pieces. So we're gonna just gently touch the edge of those with our lightest color here to accentuate the flaw in the stone and make them look a little bit more convincing. As if the light catches. That one I went a little too far. You normally want to get just a little bit in and then a little bit up top. Yeah, that stripe got a little bit too much, but that's all right. I can get my dark blue and I can glaze over it and take it down a notch. And it was a fair question anyway, because the camera did freeze earlier. For the first time ever. But seems to be doing okay now. Hopefully that's not a sign it's starting to get long in the tooth. I probably should order a backup just in case. So mostly I'm going to be at the corners and tips of things applying this lightest highlight to make the details stand out. And the advantage of doing this sort of highlighting style is that you are keeping the majority of the surface black, which means this is going to look black. You won't have to fight and like feel like your stones are looking too dark blue. They should still look very, very dark. They'll look bluish black, but that works. And then we're going to muck around with basing materials for the end of this stream. I have some experiments I want to do. So you guys get to experiment with me. All right, little bits of shinies, lots of shinies. I just need to touch up the back of the big old club here. Oh, yeah. Thanks, Quindy, for the tips. All right, I'm going to grab my, I think we were doing nut brown and saddle brown. Saddle brown, that's right. We're doing saddle brown. I'm going to grab my saddle brown and touch up the rubbed off part of the staff. This is just something that is going to happen. Now, on metal, especially big, heavy metal, you're just going to get that toward the edges and things that stick out. They're going to be prone to do that. So there is no real way to stop it. You can shore it up by painting it over it and then sealing it. And if you are very determined to give it the best possible shot, you will first go over it with brush on primer. Chances are it will still eventually rub off, especially if it's a gaming piece. But if you prime it, repaint it with, and make sure your base coat's pretty thick on this, and then seal it with a couple layers of sealer, you'll be giving it the best possible chance. So I'm going to get some primer out. Remember to shake your primer really, really well. Mine has been recently shaken, so I feel cool. When I'm doing touch-ups with primer on stuff that is scraped off, I do not thin the primer. I use it full strength. Because usually I want it to cling the best it can. Let's make sure I don't have any other rub-off spots. I do not see any other rub-off spots. Yeah, no, they won't. It's counterintuitive. You just want to pick up the piece, like the claw, one of those claw games. Alrighty, get some saddle brown out. I'm going to use this, the rope highlight color to mix highlights for it real quick, just because I want to do it. So I'm going to bring in my saddle, put it over the top, very thick actually. So the more of kind of a cap of paint and primer and sealer you can make on these areas that rubbed off, the better. So I'm going to let that set. I'm going to go in and highlight it. Oh, thanks, Quindy. I'll just go a little longer tomorrow. See, there's where you've gone wrong, Kiriniko. You should never expect more from humans than from cats. Obviously, that's the problem, right? Alrighty, let's see here. Alrighty. Just was getting rid of my punch list because we've pretty much done everything on it to finish this model except for the base. I'm gonna, now that I've gotten that first coat down, I'm gonna come back and get some of this rope highlight, this kind of yellowy highlight, and I'm gonna use that to highlight this stuff. Oh yeah, I feel it. Well, yeah, I missed Monday, so my schedule's completely screwed. I don't know what day of the week it is. I keep thinking it's Tuesday, and it's not. I even did the exercises, my morning exercises for Tuesday, and then realized it was Wednesday. Now I am gonna bring in some of this color. It's because it's slightly different than what I did before. I am gonna bring a little bit of it in elsewhere. So again, putting a little bit more paint on, it's going to help to seal that area that we repainted and touched up. And if you are kind of haphazardly mixing touch-up colors that aren't exactly the same as what you started out with, just extend them down the wood a bit so that it looks right. So my colors that I'm using right now are a little bit different than what I originally used. Alrighty, so that's looking decent now. So I'm going to get some sealer out, which normally I don't use brush on sealer on most of my models, but with this one, because it's metal and because it's had rub off, I'm definitely going to do it. Ogre dude. Remember to shake up your sealer really, really well. Yeah, using bones more. Bones are great for that. There we go. Now, if I want to make sure that my my finish matches, I am aware that the brush on sealer is a little bit glossier until I thin it. So I'm gonna grab that. I'm gonna put it 4:1 paint to water, because adding a little water makes the brush on sealer dull out a little more. It's just the way the matting agent functions in it. But I'm also going to use one of the things that I mentioned in my recent video about additives, which is I'm going to get out Ye Old Anti-Shine additive. And with 4 drops of sealer and 1 drop of water, I never even use the nozzle with these because it tends to cake shut. But the amount of this stuff that I'm going to use is just like that, a tiny little chunk. I'm just going to mix it in here, and essentially it will make my sealer more matte. You don't want to use very much of it. If you have any questions on it, you can go and look at my YouTube. I just did a video on additives. Oh no. Yeah, the cat has either thought the dragon was a toy or that it was a menace. One of my cats found a bunch of my roommate's Bretonnians and chewed off all the lances off of his knights. My wood elves were happy with it, but he wasn't. Thank you for the YouTube link. So now that I've made my sealer more matte, I can put it on real thick. Because essentially when you build up, when you have a sealer that is not shiny, if you persistently put more and more layers on a model or put a really thick layer, you have a chance of it actually going shinier than it is. And that's just because the nature of the sealer. What you're doing when you're matting out something is you're adding like a texture to it to catch the light so it doesn't reflect light. So you're making kind of a pebbly texture. And the best matting agents are so small, like the particle size is so small that your naked eye won't pick that up. So below a micron. But if you keep putting layers of sealer over the top of one another, that pebbly texture that you've established gets filled in. Like slowly, with every layer, it gets flatter and flatter. And so that's why, like in the old days, when you'd use maybe Tester's Dull Coat or a different spray, and maybe you sprayed it a few times, and then you notice it getting not more matte, but more glossy, that's what happens. It's very intuitive once you know what sealer is. That, you start out making kind of a bumpy texture, but if you add more layers, then you're going to fill in that texture, and then it's going to go shiny. So that's why I added extra anti-shine additive to this before I put on a thick coat to protect it from rub off. I've got a little bit up here that I can put on. I'm waiting for that to dry. Can pluck it off of the indents. You don't really need to seal inside of cracks because you aren't ever going to be handling the model there. So one more go just to make sure I've got as good of a protective layer. And I'm probably going to do the entire end of this staff because I know that it's all going to be vulnerable. Could do like all these pointy things if I wanted to as well. And I also actually just saw I have a tiny little bit, I didn't see it at first, but there's a tiny little bit of rub off starting on this end. So I can touch that up. Only if they're small. You hope your dog doesn't eat something that's going to get caught in their intestine. Obstructed bowel is no fun for anyone. And just touching up that end, letting it get nice and solid, and then I will put the sealer on. Just doing a little bit of more highlight work there. You guys are just gross. I'm not even going to engage. And I can make poop jokes with the best of them, but you know, I've taken the high road today. Alrighty, I think we're good. Excellent, excellent, excellent. So now I'm gonna let that set for a second, and we have to fix some holes around his feet. And we're gonna use our super sneaky sticky note fix, because sticky notes, they're good for everything. Alrighty, and I need to take a hydrate. There. I need a sticky note. Luckily, I have many. Okay, so I showed you guys this, I think, trick on a regular base at one point, but we have a very small area here, but you can still use the sticky note trick. What, you say, is the sticky note trick? Well, you have this sheet of paper, and it's already got adhesive on one side, so you pretty much go and look at the hole you're trying to fill, and you snug your sticky note into that area, and you press it down on the base with a fingernail or fingertip or a brush butt or whatever you need to do. Then you grab your knife and you slice that piece of sticky note out. And voila! You have filled the gap. It is enough filled that you can apply super glue over it or white hobby glue and apply your gravel or whatever else you're going to do. So then you can do the other side. This is the fastest way, absolutely the fastest way, to fill these gaps in the holes of slotted bases. And all you need is a sticky note and an X-Acto knife. Ta-da! Oh, and there's one in between his feet too. We can even do that. We just need to be a little bit more persnickety about what we're going to use. Let's see. I have to figure out where my adhesive goes. I'm going to pre-cut this one and then trim it back. So pre-cutting it. And then we're going to use the knife to kind of put it where we need it. In this case, I had it shaped like an arrow, so that's actually perfect. And then we just have to use the butt of a brush to stick it down if we can't get our fingers in there. Press it down firmly on both sides of the hole. And guess what? In 2 minutes, we have filled in all the holes and we can work. We don't have to wait for anything to set. We can just go. I don't even use tape. I like it. I don't like to go from underneath because then I've still got a gap that I have to fill with basing stuff. I don't really want to do that. I want the top of my base to be flat and to not have to worry about pits. So I don't use it. I don't go from below for that reason. You can, if it works for you, go for it. I just don't want to have to fill those holes that are still going to be there. Yeah, exactly. You can do that too, Rax. I just hate to fight the thing, and this is a 2-minute fix, so now I can do my basing on a flat surface. There are all sorts of ways to do it, but this is fast. Very, very fast. And almost everybody's got a sticky note lying around. Or a piece of tape. You could use tape. I like sticky notes a little better, but that's just me, because I have a sticky note fixation. Ask David. All right, we're going to do some different stuff today. We're going to mix some goop. We're going to use flexible modeling paste from Liquitex, which is my new favorite tool. Do I have a blister top around here that I can use? That's a question. I put all my blister tops in the other room. I may need to go fetch one. Because you definitely don't want to work in the palette with this stuff. It will set. I do not see a blister top immediately apparent. So I may need, let me go check again. Usually I have like one hanging around after I do my work, but it looks like I got rid of them all. All right. I am going to go and grab a blister top real quick, guys, so I'm going to try to mix our own texture paste today. That's my goal. I'm going to even color it. So hold on. Alrighty. So yeah, Liquitex does a lot of mediums, and of all the ones that I have been mucking around with, the flexible modeling paste I think is closest to what we would use. I'm just using some little airbrush containers. I found them faster than blister packs. I haven't ever even done this. I haven't done this before, by the way, so this will be interesting. So the flexible modeling paste is cool stuff. You can sculpt with it. It is goopy, however. It is like a paste. So when I open it, you can see that it is very goopy like a paste. I was thinking that I could mix stuff with it, and also I'm pretty sure that I can tint it with paint. But we're gonna rock it and see. Hey, thanks for the resub. Unremarkable. I think you're remarkable because you subbed. You resubbed with Prime. That takes effort. Yes, it's goopy paste. And then I have some nice gravel. Yeah, exactly, right. And I don't have wooden sticks, so I'm going to use the butt of one of my other brushes that I don't care about. I have very, very cheap plastic brush that I'm sacrificing for this. But I can just wipe it off the handle. And then what color do I want to make it? I really wanted to go quite warm, and let's go with something like tarnished copper. Let's go with something like that. I wanted him to be in like a desert canyon kind of surrounding, kind of like that. I really wanted to go warm with this model, like from the get-go. So I'm going to try to mix up something of that sort. So let's grab a bunch of goop. Let's have fun with goop. I honestly don't work with this stuff. Like, I have not worked with this stuff prior to getting it a couple months ago. So I'm going to get some goop out. I also try to actually drop some more water back into my goop when I open it. Kind of my same kind of theory as behind my paints, is that it'll keep it wet and good for longer, because it certainly could dry out and set fast. This is Liquitex flexible modeling paste. Flexible modeling paste. It sets up pretty hard, but it's still flexible, which is what I like about it. The other one, the heavy modeling paste, is... I'm going to just put a little bit of texture in here. A little bit of gravel. Let's see what I can do with it. I've never mixed these together. I have no idea what this will do. This is Chemistry 101. Okay, that is actually setting up pretty good and rocky. That's pretty chunky. I'll see what I can make with this. I'm actually going to put a drop of paint in it. I want to see what that does. How much can I tint it? Now, with everything in paint, when you take a property or take a substance that does a specific thing and you mix other substances into it that do not do that same thing, oh, that's good. That's a good color. You are going to impinge on the ability of the original stuff, whatever it was. I think I am going to do more modeling paste on this. Thanks, Tiber. Yeah, I love the sticky note trick too. I'm going to grab more of this goop. More goop! And then I'm going to use a drop of water on it to keep it a little wet, a little longer. Just one. I don't want to put off set time too much. So I've tinted it a little bit. That's cool. So that tells me that if I was using a darker color, I could probably get this to go. It's going to have white in it no matter what, I think. So it's going to always tint a little light, but all right. Excellent. So I'm going to grab this. I do need like, I have one of those Games Workshop spatulas. But actually what I'm going to use is my my extra firm flat chisel clay shaper, which I like for spreading this sort of thing. Get my gravel off of here. Get that out of here. And really, I just want to kind of see what I can do with this. And this comes from my childhood, where I mixed together all sorts of stuff. Let's see what we can do. Goop. So why go out and buy your own texture paste when, or buy texture paste from somebody else when you can make your own? That's the moral of this story. And putting gravel in it has definitely impinged on how much I can sculpt it, because obviously it has rock bits in it. And some of those rock bits are fairly large, so those will impinge on. Always take your finger or a Kleenex and kind of keep cleaning off your edge here. But it is going to fill in this, this area very nicely. And it's going to fill it in with some texture, which I wanted. I wanted a very deserty, rough, stony texture. Do be careful with the amount that you put on and where you put it on. It is going to stick to stuff, and so put it on and then spread it. Now, this modeling paste has the property that once it starts to set up, you can use water to smooth it down and shape it even more. Now, I'm mixing in some water straight off the bat, but it will let you do that. So as it sets up, it can still be influenced as it gets just past its goopiest stage. So you could mix any kind of texture into this that you wanted. You could mix flock into it. If you wanted something super fine, you could use a super fine flock. I could have just used super glue, you know, and applied my gravel. But if I did that, I wouldn't get this great kind of rough earth texture that I wanted. Whereas, you know, it would be flat, right? You'd apply super glue and then you just get flat earth. And you wouldn't really get a lot of this awesome texture. So now I'm going to go, and I'm actually going to use a brush for this next part. A really wrecked brush. Really cheap brush. See, the nice thing about the silicone is that it just wipes right off. I just use a paper towel or a Kleenex. So let me grab in my brush. I want to grab just a little bit more precise application in my very crappy Taklon brush. Kind of dab it right down in the middle. I'm going to add a lot to it in Lady Nim, but this is just the base. But yeah, I mean, the nice thing about the flexible modeling paste is if you don't add any texture to it, or maybe you just add the tiny suggestion of texture, you can, you could absolutely make it into like snowdrifts and stuff. That's what I originally got it for. I was like, oh, this would let me you know, create more waves and drifts and kind of that kind of terrain. But in reality, I realize I like it because it lets me get more of an organic earthworks feel. It is a little more time than just throwing super glue down and, you know, nabbing your gravel and just dipping it in, but it gives a much more real feel. You can also just leave it piled up if you want a more of a gloppy kind of rise. You can do that. I'm just kind of pushing a little bit of it. As I get close to the feet, I don't want it to be super deep. So I'm just kind of pushing it up under there with my brush. That's why I switched to a brush for this one. And I'm not doing it too much. If I have a big rock here, I'll push it away. Now, inevitably, I'm going to get a little bit of this stuff onto the model, like I did right there. So what I can do then is I can grab, where's a mixing brush, grab it, and get some water on it, kind of just shove it off. Like I said, before it sets, it's water soluble, so you can go in and get it off of areas just by covering your brush with water. See? And it'll come right off, which is nice. Pretty much you take your brush and, like I said, grab it with water, Kerniko, and it'll thin as you add water to it. And then I can keep my my bigger rocks. I'll just keep them out of this area underneath his foot. But I'll still have a little bit of texture. And it will be enough texture that it'll still look like it belongs everywhere else. The other thing this paste would be really good for, by the way, is if you're doing a snowscape or a desertscape and suggesting like footprints behind the model, like where they've just walked. Because it'll hold its shape, you could totally do it. Like this is a cool medium. I'm gonna build that up a little. So again, grab and get your brush really wet, and then you can thin this stuff down and stuff it down more toward his feet. Because it'll thin down, just you can see how it's thinning. But yeah, I mean, I had this model already stuck to his base, and I decided to work with the base I had instead of like raising him up on you know, something. But the nice thing about this paste is that, yeah, when you thin it, you can keep your texture, just enough of your texture, but you can make it go right up against the feet without having the feet be like buried, right? Because that's the problem I ran into all the time with super glue and gravel, just in general. And likewise, if it's too stiff and you really want it to be more workable, add water. That's coming across nicely. So the foot has a little bit under it there. And I can get my water. There. And water will take it right off of your mini. It just like thins it down, pull it out, and you're good. Which I love, which you can't do with super glue, right? You can't do it. It just doesn't work that way. So I'm going to leave this little rock outcropping here because I want variable ground. There, and we'll get over here. And I'm always making sure, one thing you do want to do is you want to, if you're going to work with a decent brush that you don't want to completely dye, always make sure that you get that brush wet before you go in to work this stuff. So always make sure that it's wet. If you always do that, then there's always going to be kind of a water barrier between your brush and the medium. And your brush will emerge. I mean, I'm using a crappy mixing brush anyway, but I still don't want to lose my crappy mixing brush. So your brush will emerge from this relatively unscathed because this is water soluble. So this is the first foundation. Essentially, I wanted to work up from here with some larger rock structures, but I wanted to lay down a good kind of desert texture first, a really rough desert texture. I like how this is feeling right now. It also fills in that kind of recessed part of the base. Yeah, you could do all sorts of stuff with the racks. I'm sticking to like the basics with this one, I'm afraid. But yeah, just like with any sculpting putty. Now, the one thing you do need to learn, just like with any sculpting putty, is that you do need to learn the time frame you have to work it. And that's experience, right? Learning when it's stiff enough to carve, but still soft enough to carve. Although if I was going to do runes and stuff, I don't know if I would use this stuff. I would be more likely to create like larger stones and stuff with Sculpey and do it that way. But that's my comfort zone. Like, I'm used to using Sculpey. I like having the rim around this because it lets me put inset texture and leaves me still with a clean edge, which I enjoy. This stuff's still pretty soupy. This stuff's starting to set up on the back. I can tell because when I touched it, it resisted a little bit, but it's still fairly wet because I was mixing in water. So this is where I'm going to stop and fill in any holes if I see places that just don't look right. I'll smooth out some things maybe. Maybe pull some of my big rock here out into more of a mound and put some of that texture under the foot. I don't want to totally not have texture under the foot. I just want a little bit. And I like having the color to it instead of just having it be white, because it lets me kind of see what I'm doing a little bit more. You could tint it with any color you wanted. And then if you really want to make a sharper edge, you can take your fingernail and kind of scrape it. Like so. Put that into the water. So you can see how it's like scraping off with little powdery bits as it sets up. But it is still flexible when it sets, and I like that better than the heavy sculpting gel because the heavy sculpting gel is a little bit more brittle. So the flexible, I like. I think it'll resist breakage. So I buried the toe a little bit there. So I'm gonna grab my brush, fill it with water again, like so, and go at that just a little bit from the top to push the putty off. It's starting to set up now, but it's still not set enough to resist that. There we go. We have our foot back. Miniatures done. Quindy, how do you even manage? This is Liquitex Flexible Modeling Paste. Yes, it is. We made a texture putty with it, a texture paste with it. I do, that said, you know, I do like sometimes if I'm just being lazy to get a pre-bottled texture paste, especially if I need a really fine one, because I don't have a lot of super fine sand or stuff to make one. So I do sometimes reach for a pre-done one if I want a really fine texture. But here I wanted a really rough, rocky, deserty texture. How do you have no idea? Yeah. So this won't take too long to set up, guys. It starts to set up, in my experience, in like 5 to 10 minutes. And then usually by 20 minutes in, it's pretty set. Unless you added a lot of water to it. If you were mucking about with it like I was and you're adding a lot of water. Also, these little peaks, like here, I'll see if I can show you. See that little peak there? If you don't want those little peaks sticking up like that, then flatten it down because it will stay. Like this will hold quite fine detail as far as like peaks and troughs. So I'm going to flatten that down just a little bit. Again, with a wet brush. If you just keep working with a wet brush, you're not going to have any problems. kind of. I love how I can just like thin this stuff and let it and slide it under the feet a little bit so that it looks natural. But yeah, you can see how you could make footprints with it really easy. You just make a depression in your paste. That is a cute sheep emoji. It's adorable. So are you telling me I have trolls in my stream? I mean, we are painting an ogre, but I'm not painting a troll at the moment, so not really suitable. But I guess we'll accept it. Not really suitable kind of defines like Miniatures Den though, doesn't it? Now Quindy is trolling. Oh dear. So much fun. So, okay, here we go. And it is just about time, guys. Hey, it's 2 minutes till Luca. So, what we did today is we finished off all of our small details. Our ogre's looking really good. I'm actually really happy with him. We've got our desert basing set up, so now this will dry. And I'm going to have to think about, I want bigger rock formations, kind of stacks of rocks. So I'll be working on strategies to create those in some way that I can show you guys. No llamas were harmed in this stream. That is true. For next time. So yeah, tomorrow come back. We are working on a brand new model. Madame Delia from Dreadmere. We're going to do a dark red, burgundy, and cream is what you guys wanted for her color scheme. So we're going to be working more on her. And, you know, once we get well into her, there'll be a lot of freehand, which I'm looking forward to on the dress. But yes, so come back tomorrow. We'll start talking skin tones. We'll start blocking in the rest of our colors and get our scheme all put together. I hope you've had a fantastic morning with me, even if it is an evening for you. And Miniatures Den, I hope you have a wonderful stream. And with that, I will end on time. Woo! All right. Go out there and have a great day, guys. Bye.